everyone. Sorry it's been, I think I just got on. There we go. Okay. Let's hope that this works. Again, thanks for your patience. I am doing this all on my own tonight, and we are going to try to make this work as best we can. Hi to everyone saying hello on Instagram. It's going to be a little bit harder for me to answer questions tonight, so just bear with me. I can always go back and answer them after the fact, but for right now, I'm just going to try to get through this as easily and as simply and hopefully as pleasantly as possible. So yeah, I'll appreciate any feedback and most likely answer anything after the live is over. So I was super rushed per usual, so I'm going to do an outline real quick, and then we'll get on to the shiny tutorial part of it all. If you couldn't tell, and if you haven't been hanging out with us lately, I am using black light now, which is super exciting, a little bit challenging, but pretty darn fun. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alrighty, here we go. Just trying to make sure that we are live on Facebook. I don't see it anywhere, and that's making me a little nervous. Is this right now? This is right now. This is right now. Hey, Facebook. All right. Alright, like I said, for those of you that might just be joining, I was behind per usual today, and so I am just going to do this quick outline for Mr. Darth Vader, and then we'll be able to show you guys how I make things shiny. Alright, let me center this, and we're going to flip the black lights off and the regular lights on, and we'll do some tutorial stuff. Again, endless thank yous for your patience, you guys. This means a lot to me. So just thanks. Okie dokie. This is actually a pretty good starter picture if anyone ever wanted to just work in black and white. Darth Vader's a really cool subject for that. Let's see if I can. Yeah, we're gonna do this. Alright. So, basics of something being shiny. When you're drawing something to be shiny, it's a little weird to wrap your head around the idea of, how do I make this look reflective? We all know in our heads what shiny looks like, but getting it onto paper or canvas or whatever is a little more difficult. And so for me, somebody pointed this out to me when I was in college. You can go follow her on Instagram at Skelecorn Inc. She pointed out to me that the shinier something is, the smaller any reflection on it might be. So if you look at just a driveway, let's say a cement driveway, it won't be, it's obviously got that gravelly texture to it, and it's not going to be able to bounce light back to our eye. Something that's more like Vader's helmet or a car or I don't know, just anything that's got kind of a very smooth sheen, glossy sheen to it, will have these tiny little sections that are very sharp, that will stand out against, they'll be contrasting whatever they're right next to, and I'll get to that in a second. But so for this particular Darth Vader picture, we have, you won't see it until later, but right down underneath will be his saber. And so there's going to be a whole bunch of light that's coming in kind of right in this direction. So we're going to use that, and we're going to put that into play as we're shading this. And then we're also going to have some other light on this side, just as kind of having two light sources kind of makes a picture a little more interesting, especially if they're different colors. So from this side, since his saber is red, there's going to be a lot of red light over here. And then we're going to have a blue light kind of to contrast the warm and the cool part, or to be the cool to the warm. And so this side is going to have more blue on it. And when I attack a picture like this, I'm going to lay down some colors to reflect that idea. So we know that Darth Vader's helmet is black, and it's shiny. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay in the middle of this section that might have less light coming onto it from either side, I'm going to put our base color right smack dab in the middle. His helmet has this interesting groove that kind of comes up and over and down. If I were to draw this a little, well, more technically, there's kind of a dip right in here. I don't know if you can see that, but it raises up to this point of his helmet, and then it raises up on the other side. So you have this kind of smooth swoop up, and then it goes over, and then this part is going to come down and kind of do the same thing on the other side. His whole helmet is rounded, so we've got this really pretty arch or arc across the whole thing. And I'm going to use that when we get into the specifics of where certain light sources reflect off of that. But right now I'm just going to stick with this base color. So I'm going to keep putting it kind of in the middle of his helmet. I'm going to smooth this out. When I lay colors down, I like to make sure that they're really like opaque, unless I know I'm going to be blending it with something else. So right here in the middle, where we know it's going to be a darker or dark black, God, I can't talk for this. We're going to try to make it as dark as we can right in here. I'm using the tips of my fingers, the squishiest parts of my fingers, to kind of move the chalk around and make sure that it fills in all the tooth of the canvas. And then, so I've got this really pitch black in the middle. I'm going to kind of do a hash mark system out to the side because I know I'm going to want to blend it with another color. So I'm going to not do exactly like a straight line of color. I'm going to do kind of this like hatch mark line going across, and that's going to provide space for whatever other color needs to blend in with it. Cool. I'm going to leave this alone for right now. I'll come back to this part in a little bit. But after that, I'm going to come back here and I'm just going to put the slightest bit of our base color right in here up against it on the other side. Alright, so it looks super messy right now, but that's okay. Chalk is a very flexible medium. I can go back and I can correct things in a little bit. But right now this is looking pretty good for a starting point for our helmet. Next I'm going to add the blue on our cool side. So I'm going to come in over here, and I'm going to actually raise the camera a little bit so that you can see. Cool. We're going to get some of this blue in here. And just like we did with our main color, I'm going to kind of try to make this as opaque as possible over here. And I often, I switch up my drawing technique all the time. So sometimes you'll see me doing these hash lines. Sometimes you'll see me kind of going in circles with the chalk. It's just whatever I can use to get the chalk on the canvas as fast as possible. A lot of the time I am at a convention and I only have so many hours in the day that I can draw with. So for me, sometimes it's about time. Yeah, awesome. So I went back in here where I did all my hatch marks. I'm going to put this blue over it. And that's a blending technique for today. So I've got this kind of nice gradient going from black to blue. Because this is a light source, I know that it's not going to be dead on this darker blue color, this kind of cobalt blue. I want to add a little bit of white in here. So I'm going to, looking at my picture, I have a reference photo in my hand right now, and I'm going to follow a line. This gets a little tricky because it kind of runs into our shiny issue. But the way that his helmet is sculpted, there's a ridge right in here where it comes out from the helmet and it kind of slopes out and down if you were like looking at the top of the helmet. Right here is where it kind of comes out and slopes down. So I'm giving that a little bit of light. I'm also going to take this, I'm gonna kind of come right up here. I'm not going all the way to the edge because you can do some really fun kind of chrome effects when you put, as I was talking about earlier, when you put a sharp contrasting color right next to our highlight. So I'm going to do that a little bit later, but right now I want to kind of mark that this is where a highlight is going to be. Cool. Awesome. So now if I look at it, since I just rubbed my fingers over everything, it kind of looks like a dull sheen. And like I said earlier, that's because my highlights aren't super tiny and sharp and defined. They're a little bit bigger, they're a little bit wider, and they're more like translucent kind of. They're blurry a little bit, and that's what makes something look kind of like a dull finish. If I want to go back in and give it more of a shiny look, I'm going to pick this outer side. So if we imagine that this line right here, this kind of light blue line now, I want to highlight one side of it. I'm going to highlight the part that the light is coming from. So on the outermost, or the source that's closest to the light, that side, I'm going to highlight that very tiny and very sharp. I'm not going to blend it out too much. I just want to get that chalk in there and I want it to stay. But that bit of cleaner white area in this whole section is going to make it look a little more shiny. I'm going to do it one more time just to get that emphasis in there. Nice. Cool. Now I'm going to go to the other side. I'm going to lay the red down for this left side. Same process. Kind of using my fingers to bring the black over from the right side and mix it in with the red on the left. Okay. I'm almost going to mimic the shine on this side like I did over here. So I didn't go right up against the edge. I'm going to take my my opaque red and I'm going to kind of bring it down and a little bit away from the edge. Cool. Noticing that my helmet is a little out of shape, and that's okay. I can always come back, kind of round this up a little bit. Cool, cool. Okay, I'm gonna add that white highlight on my red side now. According to my picture, it kind of starts at the top and it gets smaller as it goes to the bottom. So I'm taking my chalk, I'm just kind of like flicking it towards the bottom so that it becomes more of a point. I'm gonna rub this in. Cool. Okay. Next, I'm going to identify that I have the same kind of crest to his helmet over here. I'm going to give that a little bit of a highlight. And I'm kind of mimicking, it's a smaller part of his helmet, but I'm going to mimic the same thing that I did up here where I've got kind of this bolder part that comes down to a point. I'm going to do the same thing over here. It's bold and then it comes down to a point. Alright, cool. So now we have our main color for the helmet in the middle. We've got our blue light on one side, we've got our red light on the other side. Let's add a little more depth to this and say that we're going to blend these two colors over our base color in the middle. And I am going to work on this kind of divider section that he's got going. It's kind of like what they had on like a Spartan helmet. That goes like from the nose all the way up and over the top. But I'm going to work on that a little bit. So I'm going to actually take my red and my blue. I'm going to go over our base color. And very lightly, I'm going to kind of just go over that middle section. And then I'm going to do that with the red. And I'm going to blend them out. I'm not pressing too hard because I want to still tell where this border line is on each side, but I'm blending it just enough to give us a little bit of each color in here. And if you wanted to, you could go straight up with the purple that red and blue make together. You could put that in there. I might actually do that. I'm going to grab... I have a little bit of kind of your basic violet, but it's like a lighter tone, and I'm going to put a little bit of that over. Ooh. Do that all the time. Okay, so since his helmet is rounded, if we have this light source over here coming in, some of it on this side is going to get some of that light. So part of his helmet is going to be able to reflect a little bit of that red, and vice versa. But that's why we kind of keep it close to the middle, because that's where they would cross over. Alright, cool. I know it might be hard to see in the camera, but we've got a little bit of purple going on in the middle. Well, hey Instagram, I just realized that you blipped out because my battery was really low. Super sorry. I'll see if I can clip those two pieces together later, but here I am doing it back again. I hope you can join us. Alrighty, gonna grab our white again, and I'm going to kind of remind myself where this piece is. And looking at my picture, there's a big old highlight on the top, so just like I did with the other two pieces, gonna come in with that white. And you'll notice that line that I drew earlier, this is a rounded piece. It's It's got a little bit of a flat bit on top, but it goes up, over, and down. So I'm going to follow that. And then I'm also going to follow it on the other side, over, but not exactly meeting our other highlight. So kind of just before it gets over here. Cool. Now we're going to add in some really big highlights, and that's mostly going to be on this middle section and just out to the middle. We can go back in later and add some more kind of glare over here because of that lightsaber that will be over there. But right now I'm going to focus on the picture that I have in my hand and how it affects this picture. Let's see. So since this part kind of sticks out in the middle, there's a big old section in here that has this funky kind of pointed oblong shape right in the middle. And this might take me a couple tries just because I put the black down first. I can still get it to be pretty darn white after the fact, but it might just take a couple tries. Also helps to have clean hands, but when do we ever have clean hands? Following this piece that arcs over. Gonna do this line, and then they highlighted like right on the very top of this edge. And because this is also the same kind of angle as this middle piece, I'm gonna give it its own little section of highlight. Gonna do it on the other side too. So since we have this kind of arc right here, and then this piece will come down, I'm gonna give this like that. But I can tell you right now that the shapes that I have on here are nowhere near perfect to the picture that I'm holding in my hand. For those of you that don't know, I always have a reference photo, and this is not exactly what it looks like. I'm going to go back in and refine it a little bit, but this is just kind of a starting off point for where I'm trying to go. Okay. So now that I have those shapes there, I'm going to refine them, and I'm going to take the colors for each side and or the middle and just kind of make a border around the shape that's already there. So what I'm going to do, like I said, the contrast, if I put a darker color right next to a lighter color and they have a very clean edge, you're going to get a shinier effect. So that shape already looks a lot more streamlined, a lot more kind of pretty compared to the kind of blob that I had a second ago. I'm going to do that with this middle shape too. Kind of has the shape of like a bullet. And this side. funky trapezoidal shape. Alright. So these colors obviously don't match what was once there before I put the highlight down, so I'm going to try to mimic that again. Okay. I'm going to go back into our red side, and I'm going to kind of add a little bit of glare that might come in from other stuff besides the saber that he'll be holding. So maybe there is like a stormtrooper or a shape over here somewhere that his helmet picks up, or maybe it's just like a darker landscape and the only thing that's in the picture that's bright enough to light anything up is his saber. So there's going to be a kind of another contrast against the highlight we put down, and it's gonna take up a little bit of space. Making sure that we keep this funky kind of visor piece up. Gonna come back in against this highlight and give it that contrast. Gonna come in here and kind of do the same thing. There's probably a different shape on this side of his helmet, and I'm going to make sure that I have a bit of a fun, I don't know, it could be like wavy. I want to stay with the general shape of his helmet, which is kind of this curved dome. So I'm not going to get too crazy. On a car, if you were to do like a really cool chromey version of a car grill or something, you might have some fun kind of wavy lava lamp kind of shapes going on. But his helmet is pretty darn like single directional, if you want to call it that. Awesome, and then I'm going to clean up this side with another contrast line. Sweet. Alright, so at this point we have like our biggest sets of highlights going on. I'm going to put a little bit of black here so that we know that this is kind of the edge of the visor of his helmet. The part that I'm kind of filling in now is more of a recessed section between the pieces that make up his eye sockets, I guess, and the top of the visor, the bottom of the visor, sorry. So this is all going to be really dark, but it's a lot easier to see where your highlight on the bottom is going to be. Alright. I'm going to grab another stick of white. Alright, it's not looking too bad. I'm going to come in and make this this a little bit brighter. I can always go back and clean up the edges. I'm not worried about that. Some people ask me all the time, like, what do you do when you make mistakes? You go over them. Chalk is super flexible like that. Alright, go back in, clean it up. Cool. I'm kind of missing that purple color that we had in here a second ago, so I'm going to try to bring some of that back. And I'm going to try to define this middle kind of, whatever we want to call this. If there's somebody out there who knows the name, the technical term for that random piece in the middle, let me know. But we don't make sure that that doesn't lose its shape either. I accidentally covered some of this up. Gonna bring it back. Okay, and now we're going to define some of the shapes of his helmet a little bit more. So like I said, there's this weird kind of visor section, and then everything is more like a bowl on top, with the exception of this middle piece. But so we're going to kind of use some glare lines, some shiny lines to tell the audience what direction the shape is going in. So for this visor, anything that we put on here will most likely be kind of a straight line, especially since he's got his saber over here. We're going to put a line that just kind of highlights this shape that goes out from the helmet and down towards his eyes. And how do we make sure that it's nice and tight? We're going to kind of clean it up on either side. And I'm going to add a little bit of a darker element right next to it to give it that contrast. Cool. I'm going to come do that right up against here. Just giving certain areas that bit more of contrast. On this side, my shape for a highlight is going to be a little bit different. Let's say I'm going to kind of follow this line, but then since we have this section that comes down, I'm going to give it a highlight over here. And what are we going to do? We're going to put some darker color right next to it to clean it up and give it that contrast. I realized that I went too dark, so I'm going to bring back some of this. And then I'm going to hit it with that purple again so we don't lose that purple. Again, there's probably a funky shape over here. The name of the game for these really super shiny things is clean and contrast. So the more we put a bright color right next to a dark color and make sure that the lines are clean, the shinier of an object you're gonna get. Okay. There are some, looking at my picture, there are some kind of secondary shadows on here that are not nearly as bright as what we already have, but they help kind of tell the viewer, they tell our eye that the colors bouncing off of his helmet are not all the same. They're not all the same brightness. They're not all the same color. So for example, right above this shape, there's kind of a muted version of what's right underneath it. So this color won't be the same, but I still want the sharpness. So I'm gonna kind of blur it out a little bit, and then I'm gonna go back in and I'm gonna make sure that the edges are really clean. Sorry about that, my camera has a 30-minute timeout limit. Alright, same thing above this shape in the middle. There's kind of a funky arch right above this one. Gonna make sure it's there, but then I'm gonna make sure it's clean. Okay, and now comes a really fun part. We're gonna add all these little kind of dots of white that are gonna make they're just gonna kind of emphasize the fact that this whole thing is really glossy, it's really smooth. We're gonna come in and we're just gonna make little kind of right next to our main highlights. We're gonna do these tiny sharp lines and little dots even. These little specks of light that kind of make something look like there's more emphasis on it. I'm gonna do one like right here. Sometimes you can kind of incorporate them into a shape that's already there. Just going back and looking at what I've already drawn and comparing it to my picture. You will always notice something that's a little bit different, especially if you take a couple steps back. Just constant comparison if you're using reference photo. Alrighty, I think that's kind of where we're gonna leave it today. I will definitely be working on this guy in the upcoming week. We're gonna make sure that he is super shiny and super glossy. I hope this gave you a little bit of insight as to how to draw something that has a smooth texture and that has a lot of light on it. It'll amp up your drawings like crazy, especially if you can kind of get down the idea of what the shape looks like and then where your light sources are coming from and how to accentuate those points and then where to put your contrast and how to keep things sharp. So again, I hope this kind of helped give you a little bit of an idea of what goes through my head when I'm drawing something shiny. I will be hopefully doing another live drawing tomorrow night. I'm gonna double check with my friends and see if we can do that. It would be Palpatine, but like I said, I gotta double check. Other than that, I hope you guys have a great night. Thanks for tuning in. I will go back and look at any comments in the comment section and try to answer any questions. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it, and we will hopefully see you guys tomorrow. Thanks. Bye.